I'm here today with Chris Heathcote, who is a resident beekeeper here in Montgomery County and has hives that are on the Ruppert Nurseries property. So tell us how long have you been doing beekeeping?
So I started beekeeping in 2019. I actually wanted to do chickens, and my wife told me no. And then she went on a golf trip, and I made an executive decision and bought 2 nucleus hives, and that's grown. It's a hobby gone bad. But it's great.
Or really good for the environment, depending on how you want to look at that.
Well, yeah, I mean, my wife tells me all the time, don't you ever forget who the real queen bee is.
A good thing to remember in a relationship.
Yeah.
So tell us, how did you get connected to Ruppert Nurseries? How did you end up with hives on our property?
Well, I think what happened was Sophie reached out to me and was interested in having bees on the farm. And that was great. I needed a place to put bees, and so it really worked out as a really good, nice, symbiotic relationship.
Nice.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit, because you have the expertise, tell us a little bit about the pollinators and the hives, why they are important, why they're specifically important in Montgomery County.
Yeah. So, pollinators is a broad term. Honeybees are pollinators, but there are literally thousands of other different kinds of pollinators. Bumblebees, carpenter bees, mason bees, wasps, flies, native bees. I believe, if I remember right, there's over 400 different species of native bees in Maryland. But as far as pollinators go, they're important because they kind of make the world go round when it comes to propagation of plants, orchards. 1/3 of our food is pollinated by bees.
Got you.
So without bees, we wouldn't have that.
Yes.
It's really important to the environment.
Got you. Now, specifically at our nursery, it's my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most of our trees are not fruit trees. They're other types of trees. So how is it, and I know we have plots that we've planted with wildflowers at Ruppert Nurseries, a bunch of them. How does that whole thing work? Why is it important that we have the plots even though they're not directly fertilizing fruit trees, right?
Right. So, generally people that want honeybees have a specific need for pollination. For instance, like an apple orchard, something like that, where, those trees, the flowers of those trees, rely solely on honeybees to pollinate them.
Right.
Most of the trees there are more like urban type, ornamental. Sure. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
They don't rely on bee pollination at all. It's usually, they rely generally on the wind for that, okay? So in that point, the trees don't need the bees. But in the process of planting meadows, that is a huge, huge advantage to the environment.
Yes.
And the reason that has become so important to create, fertile spaces for pollinators is because a lot of farming now has turned into what we call monocrop farming. They'll plant one crop. Generally, it's either corn or soybean. And the reason that is that's really the only crops they can make any money off of. So you very rarely see a field of clover anymore or a field of alfalfa. And if you do, they will cut that field before it flowers, just before it flowers, because there's more nourishment in the plant at that point.
Got you.
And they'll use that as fodder for cattle.
Got you. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it sounds like almost with that happening, it's almost like a food desert for the bees, essentially. You know what I mean? So
it is, yeah. So it's tough because in Maryland, where we are, the nectar flow occurs. There are two main sources for nectar. One is the black locust tree, and one is the tulip poplar. And both those trees bloom roughly from the beginning of May to the end of May, maybe the middle of June, but that's it. Those are the main sources of nectar for honeybees and pollinators. Yard clover is out now. It's, like getting toward the middle of June. And as long as we keep getting rain, the yard clover will keep blooming. But if it dries up, that goes away. My point is, by the beginning of July, we are in what's called a dearth. There's nothing blooming out there for the bees. There's nothing for them to eat. So in the spring, when those two trees bloom, black locust and tulip poplar, their workforce, the bees' workforce, has to be up and ready to go. So that's, you know,
yeah.
And so planting a meadow that blooms throughout the year, like early spring, early summer, late summer, fall, that's huge.
Because it just gives them a viable opportunity to have not just what's native, but, you know, be able to have some other sources for their food source.
Some food source, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to maybe take a look at some of what you're doing. We're here at your house today, and we're going to take a look at what you're doing with doing like a hive check today, which I think you've recently done on the Ruppert Nurseries property.
Yeah.
But we had an opportunity to see you do it here at your house.
Sure.
So we're going to take a look at that.
Okay, sounds good.